Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2021 Nature Festival, sponsored by the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. I'm Tom Romito, and your host for this program. I'm a board member of the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, and we are the fundraising arm of the refuge. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were established in 1997 to support Ohio's only wildlife refuge complex through youth development, public use projects, and most recently, land acquisition and restoration. The refuge is located in the western basin of Lake Erie, halfway between Port Clinton and Toledo, in some of the most critical wetland habitats in the world. If you are interested in learning more about us and what we do, look at the link that I've just placed in the chat room. You should see 3 links in there. If you don't see 3 links in there, please let me know through a message in the chat room. The first one is the Friends of Ottawa NWR.org. That's our website, and that's where you can go to become a member of the Friends group, volunteer at the refuge, make a tax-deductible donation to support our work, or shop at our online nature store. The second link, Friends of Ottawa NWR.org Seek Refuge Days, is the schedule for this virtual festival. This is about our 10th one, and we've got another 15 more to go, and you can register for any and all of them using that schedule. And the last link is our survey. It's a brief survey. At the end, we ask that you take the survey. Only takes a couple of minutes. Give us your candid input on how well you thought we did and how we can do better. And if you do that, you will get a prize, which is a coupon to shop at the online nature store. So this morning, we are joined by Mark Hainen. Mark will take us on a photographic journey of the warblers and other birds that he has observed during spring migration in Northwest Ohio. Mark considers himself an amateur wildlife photographer and pursues this activity purely as a hobby. He finds it challenging and relaxing in his retirement years. Many of you may know him already because he tells me he's a known quantity in the Northwest Ohio, living in Sylvania and being on the refuge a lot. Before I begin, I ask that you stay muted to minimize background noise for our presenter. Type any questions you have in the chat box as we go, and we'll have time or after the 15-minute video that Mark's going to show us and at the end of the program. So now I'm going to mute my video and turn it over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share the screen now. And this presentation is about 15 minutes long, and these are pictures that I've taken in and around the refuge in Northwest Ohio during spring migration. So it's got music, so we'll just, and I may comment during the actual video. I believe I have all 35 warblers that we normally see, with a couple of other ones that you don't normally see in this presentation. One of the ones we all want to see when we're up there, the Kirtland, but you can go to Grayling, Michigan and see it in the park there. Another favorite. I understand they're now seeing these warblers in the area. This is my personal favorite because of the color. I've been photographing these guys the last couple weeks here in Florida as they're moving north. This warbler was nesting the prothonotary at Ottawa Wildlife Refuge 2 years ago. It had built a nest in a tree along a dike. This warbler I normally see at Secor Metro Park west of Toledo. That's where I photographed this one last spring. I'm sure there's plenty of these in the area right now. Another good area near Toledo is Secor Metro Park for this warbler. They tend to stay there half of the summer. This is a hybrid that has been back 4 years in a row just across the state line in Michigan that I'm hoping it's back this spring when I get there. Another beautiful warbler, the Cape May, the male. Here, somebody's running a sweeper or something. This was at McGee about 2 years ago. It showed up, a very rare warbler, western warbler, which I did see here in Florida this year as well. Another pretty warbler, the magnolia. This is on the pretty crab tree at the boardwalk, which is a nice setting if the warbler sits in the right place. The crab apple tree. No longer a warbler, but I still count it as one in my own mind. This is the hard one to see. You can hear them often, but very rarely see them. Kind of skulky. Stay in the undergrowth. This guy's got bling on his leg there, as you noticed. Another good warbler to find, and you usually hear them before you see them. They're really loud. This warbler has been all over Florida right now. I've seen plenty of these the last couple weeks. These stay around the Northwest Ohio area all summer. Always find them by their call, their buzzy call. Now, this wasn't taken up there, as you see Spanish moss in the back, but it was my best picture of a pine warbler. Same on this one. I caught this one down here in Florida, but there are plenty in Wildwood Preserve in Toledo during the summer and spring. This is my backyard bird during the winter when I'm in Florida. They're everywhere. Now these are birds, they're not warblers, but others that you typically will see during migration. I spend a lot of time walking the dikes and biking the dikes, and you find a lot of these birds if you take the time and ride or walk the miles early in the morning. You can see plenty of birds at the wildlife refuge. One thing as this is moving, I wanted to mention, you all may know this, but there is a immature Swainson hawk that's been hanging around the Stang Road Prairie, and you can see it from the observation deck there the last couple of days. It's a pretty rare western hawk. Ken Kaufman found it, and several people have seen it and photographed it. So if you're out that area, you should go over to the Stang Road Prairie and look for it. The other grosbeak that I don't have here is the blue-headed grosbeak, and you will see several in the Northwest Ohio area. If you know their call, you can find them easily, specifically at Oak Openings Preserve, which is west of Toledo. Here's one that's there. It's just hard to find. Sometimes you get lucky. Usually on the ground or on a branch close to the ground, roosting during the day. Down in Florida, the towhee has a white eye, not a red eye. Well, that's it.
No
So
problem.
I'll be happy to answer any questions that people have the best I can.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark. I don't see any questions in the chat room yet. So here's what I'd like to do. As we are talking here, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat room. And I will start the process by asking you, Mark, about your photographic adventures. I know you've done a lot of this. Tell us a little bit about your equipment.
Well, as a retiree, I've kind of really jumped into this headlong about 10 years ago. I shoot Nikon right now, and I shoot a DSLR. I have three bodies that I rely on, but one specifically. I shoot a D5, which is the Nikon top of their line professional body. And I also use two key lenses. I have a lightweight Nikon PF 500 millimeter 5.6, which is a prime lens, but it's very small and very easy to carry, and it's really good. My really good lens is a big heavy lens. It's a Nikon 600 prime f4, which, you know, it takes excellent pictures, but as I get older, it gets heavier, I think. I don't use a tripod. I do everything freehand because I do a lot of flight photography. I do not use flash. All my photos are natural light. I'm just a believer in using natural light as the way to photograph animals. And that's what I'm using right now. I'm going to be moving to mirrorless. I'm waiting for the new announcement or the availability of the Nikon Z9, which will be their professional body mirrorless. If I don't like that, I may end up switching and going all Sony. I'm just not sure what. It's just a lot of money to switch because once you've invested in lenses, it's hard to make a change.
Well, thanks very much for explaining that. That's a lot of equipment. I know you've got a lot invested in all that gear. Have you by any chance, you said you don't have a tripod, but have you done any digiscoping?
No, I'm not doing digiscoping. I do have tripods. I have a couple, and I occasionally will use them, but I do have a scope also. I've tried, you know, a little bit of digiscoping, but I never bought the eyepiece. I have a good friend, Jerry up in Michigan, who does a lot of it, and Jerry Jordan, and you may know that name. And he's always trying to talk me into doing it, but just never got around to that. I'm so focused on my camera stuff. I've just not really taken a lot of time to learn how to do that well.
Okay, Mark. Well, thank you. Meg has asked you. You mentioned a blue-headed grosbeak you've seen west of Toledo.
Yeah.
Is that the same as a blue grosbeak?
I mean, a blue grosbeak. It was a blue grosbeak. A good place to find blue grosbeaks during June and July is Oak Openings Preserve on Girdham Road. There's the corner of Girdham and Reed. There's a small private cemetery there. If you sit there, you very often will hear them calling, and that's how I usually find them. I just know their call, and they're usually in that area reliably every year.
Swell, thank you, Mark. Now, Rebecca has asked, on average, how much time do you spend photographing each week?
Every day, probably 3 to 4 hours every day.
Wow. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for others to get creative and ask a question or be bold enough to do so, let's return to the subject of digiscoping, because there are probably a lot of people in the program who like photography and would probably like to be able to do better. And a way to do that is through digiscoping. There, just by way of sharing information, there are 3 key elements to digiscoping, and one is the spotting scope. You just find one that is fairly reliable. And the second thing you need is an attachment that goes on the scope, on the eyepiece, that connects to your smartphone. So that's the third element, of course, is the smartphone. And if you've got the attachment is the key. It's got to be a perfect fit for the scope and the phone. And you got to shop around for that. But if you have those elements and you want to do this, you can bring in a far, far away image right up in front of you through this process. And that's the value of the scope in digiscoping. Eunice has said that she also spends a lot of time using her cameras in birding. And Carol says say hi to Ann for me, Mark.
Oh, I will. She's at a baseball game, which is where I'm going next. But going back to digiscoping, one of the things I like to mention about that, it would be very hard to do for warblers because they're quick, they're moving all the time. But for shorebirds, long distant waterfowl, hawks that are perched long distances, it's excellent. I mean, you get high quality pictures, and you can actually get closer to the subject than you can with even a 600mm lens. And you're not disturbing the subject, which is nice. You're letting them act in their normal environment. So I think it's an excellent way to go for many birders. Like this Swainson's hawk that has shown up in the Ottawa Wildlife Refuge, a digiscope picture of it would be excellent because it's going to be sitting quite a ways off. You got to find it, you got to identify it, and it may still be there today on Stang Road at the prairie there somewhere. So I'd encourage those that are out there to go look for it, because there's only been one other time in Ohio's history that bird has showed up in Ohio, and that was in Wayne County a few years ago.
Very good. Does anybody else in the audience have a question they're burning to ask and maybe don't want to write it down? If you want to do it orally, you can just unmute yourself or press the space bar on your computer and ask your question. While we're waiting, in my wanderings around the refuge, I go to the southeast woods, which is right behind the nature center. That little forest there is swarming with warblers right now, and probably in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely, it's a good place.
Also, the west woods down on the auto drive, when you get to that forest, that's where the eagle nests, one of the eagle nests are,
Right.
and warblers and other things will be in that woods. Where do you go on your refuge yourself?
Well, I go to the same place as you just mentioned on the auto drive. When you, I don't know which part of it's open, but when you get a little ways down the auto drive, you go past, you're driving past where there's a bathroom, and then there's an osprey pole with a stand on the top for a nest. If you drive all the way to that end and make the curve around there to curve the back on the back road that comes along the lake there, that area along in the back there on the far eastern edge of the auto drive is great for warblers. The trees along the road there is excellent. And you can actually walk to that area from the other side or ride a bicycle. So I think going along the dike slowly, using your ears and your eyes, you'll be amazed. All the warblers you see at McGee Marsh are at Ottawa. It's just harder to find them. We don't have a convenient place for them to gather like you do at McGee. So people that go to McGee are spoiled, really. It's an easy way to see everything in a mile and a half boardwalk. The warblers are there. They're at Pearson Park in Oregon, all the metro parks in Toledo, even the parks along Lake area in southeastern Michigan, like Sterling State Park, is a good place to go for warblers and walk the paved trails there.
Good. Thanks very much, Mark. You know, I always like to tell people that, yeah, McGee Marsh is the place to go during the biggest week of American birding, which is roughly May 5th through May 15th. But of course, there's limited use on the boardwalk right now. Right. But the same birds show up at the refuge because McGee Marsh is actually on the refuge.
Right.
The only thing is you got to know where to go on the refuge to find the same birds. And we've just talked about some of those. As most of you probably know, there were 4 long-eared owls on the causeway going up to the east parking lot early this winter. And that was a very popular sighting. A lot of people came out to see it. Because owl sightings are rare, especially that close. They were probably within 25 feet of observers, but they were separated by that dike and the water in it. So that was good for the owls because we didn't spook them by just watching them. And of course, on the northern ponds, I think it's 2B, that's where the white pelicans have been congregating this year in many, many numbers. So that's if you get on the auto tour and go out there, that's a way to see such great large birds. Mark, how about outside of the refuge? You know, not too far away, but within Ottawa County, where would you go to see good birds?
Well, within Ottawa County, I guess Lucas County would be Sheldon Marsh. I don't know if that's Ottawa County. That's further to, that's over by Huron. That's a great place to go. It's on the lake, and it's got some nice walking trails. Maumee Bay State Park, the boardwalk there is a good place to go. And especially if you drive to the end of the road where the cabins are, if you drive all the way to the end of that road, it kind of has a circle so you can turn around and come back. You park there in the stones and walk along that dike. That's an excellent place for warblers. I mean, really good.
Super, thank you. And Meg has also asked, where's the best place to see sandhill cranes?
Well, I would check fields around Ottawa County close to the lake. If you drive some of the back roads from Route 2 there, you may see sandhill cranes standing out in the field. You may see them along Metzger's Marsh as you go back that large cornfield that's to your north side of the road. It's a good place to see them. There's places up by Jackson, Michigan, and there's a big, I forget the name of it, but there's a gigantic preserve there for sandhill cranes. And I always see sandhill cranes in that area off of Dalton Road, which is off 94, close to Jackson, Michigan. But that's a little bit of a drive. But I always look out in the fields. They usually, they're out, feeding in the fields. I'm fortunate. They're in my backyard here. We got 2 colts and a family of 2 colts that walk down our sidewalk and walk through our backyard every day. But up there, they're there. You just have to look for them. I would look in large plowed fields because they're looking for grubs and earthworms and things of that nature.
Okay, wonderful. Speaking of other places, yes, Sheldon's Marsh is certainly a mecca for warblers.
And there's was it Pipe Creek or Old Woman's Creek,
Yeah.
or some of those places that are by closer to East Harbor. And that East Harbor State Park is a good place to go.
Okay, Rebecca is announcing that there was a flock of 31 sandhills in Unit 7 on Thursday. Rebecca, educate us please on Unit 7. Exactly where is that?
Sorry, I pressed my space bar and all it did was make spaces.
No.
It's the wetland that's visible from the Stangy Road platform. So you look over the prairie
Okay. Yeah.
north. Or if you're on the Wildlife Drive, it's at the end of Krause Road and where it goes into Volunteer Lane.
Right.
Okay, Meg, there's your answer. If you
And
want,
look at that Swainson's hawk when you go there, because
Yeah.
that's a rare bird to be in Ohio. Very rare.
Thanks for the info, everybody.
you're welcome. Okay, well, listen, it's 10:30. We've got a half hour left, but we don't have to do this if nobody's eager for more knowledge. We kind of talked ourselves out. If anybody's got any more questions, please let us know. Just unmute and ask away. If not, we can begin the process of closing the program.
Well, one thing I'll mention for you fellow photographers out there, just a little bit about my approach. I shoot 99% of everything in aperture priority, which basically makes the camera almost automatic. And then I adjust exposure using my exposure compensation button. The reason I use aperture priority, it allows me to, if the birds move around quickly, I have a good autofocus system. It allows me to stay on them. It gives me the best results. I've tried manual, I've tried shutter priority, but aperture priority works the best for me. If you're not familiar with that, you can look it up on the web on how to use it. You just have to learn how to do your exposure compensation to get your exposures right. And what I do is I do test shots in the area that I'm looking for birds to get everything set up. And then I go along my merry way, and I'll use pinpoint focusing autofocus if there's a lot of branches and things in the way. I will switch to manual focus sometimes because birds move so quickly and your autofocus picks up everything in front of it. It just depends on the situation. My shutter speeds are between 1/500th of a second to 1/2000th based on how much light there is and if I'm trying to get movement or not.
Well, thank you for that, Mark. It's a lot of photographic knowledge. You got to be a pro. You might call yourself.
I'm not a pro. I just do a lot of experimenting. I also try to. I take a lot of pictures, so I'll take 1,000 pictures in an afternoon, and I'll keep 15 of them.
I understand that you weren't even a photographer till just recently.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. I mean, I had the photography interest when I was young, but then of course other things happened. But then my wife was interested in going birding one day, and I said, well, I'll go with you. I'll take my camera. I haven't used it for a while. And ever since that day, I got hooked.
Okay. Mark, Wilma asks, what aperture do you use most?
Well, right now, I don't know what it's like, but it's probably pretty leafed out up there. Depending on how much light's coming through, if it's leafed out quite a bit, I have my aperture wide open. So depending on which lens, if it's my 600 millimeter, I'm at f4. If it's my 500, I'm at 5.6. I'll sometimes, shut it down to f8 to try to get more depth of field. But I find that because I don't use flash, those opportunities are far and few between when you're in a lot of heavy, cover from trees and leaves. So I'm usually wide open most of the time.
Okay, thanks. It just occurred to me that people may want to see your 15-minute video again. Is anybody up for that? We got plenty of time. Why don't you give us an indication? Oh, Eunice says yes.
Okay.
Let's go do it again, Mark.
Okay, I got to go down here to share my screen. Well, let's see. I got to find it here. Okay, let's get out of this. Try it again here. It's always harder the second time, I think.
For those of you who don't know, Mark is in Florida at the moment.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to come north, but I've been down here for a few months. Okay, here we go.
Okay, gang.
And I can't wait to get back because I do miss it up there. As soon as I get back, I'm going to be there for about 30 days, and then I'm going to northern Minnesota to do some birding up there. I also added a new warbler to my list down here. I got a Swainson's warbler last week, which is a bird we don't see in Ohio because it migrates only as far as northern Georgia and the Smoky Mountain area where it breeds.
Thanks, Mark. That was quite a treat.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
And we have 11 faithfuls still left. If anybody has questions for Mark, now would be an ideal time to do that. Well, we have a couple of minutes left. Did the second viewing of the video inspire anyone to?
One of the other things I'll mention to people that like to do bird photography is always think about the composition as you're shooting. Don't focus just on the object, the bird. You want to try to set it up so you get the kind of picture that's desirable. So try to think of the habitat around the bird. I try to capture the habitat and not always try to focus in so closely or crop it so closely that you don't really see how the bird interacts with its environment. You know, for a field guide, that's great to have those really close crop shots, but sometimes it's nice to back it up, let the bird be the focal point, but have the vegetation showing around it where you can kind of see where it's at. And perspective of shot, you know, don't always try to shoot down or up. If you can get close to the ground and the bird's on the ground, shoot along the ground. It just changes the whole dynamic of your picture and it can re-improve the composition.
Thanks so much for that, Mark.